Our first task is to create the optimal environment for our teammates to interact, and we do that through alignment. We now understand that the position we use our body in can either enhance or diminish how available or how ready the muscles on our team are. The best position we've found to put our muscles in that ready state is what we call neutral. The worst position is when we have a flat back and a tucked under bum. So if you think about all those exercise programs that asked you to flatten your back and tuck your bum as you were doing your work, this has actually taken your TA and pelvic floor and put them in a less ready state. A neutral position will optimize the ability of the diaphragm to set up that loading and recoil response from the pelvic floor. So what is neutral? Neutral is a relative position that basically looks like the ribs living on top of the pelvis again. Why the ribs? Because that's where the diaphragm lives. And why the pelvis? Because that's where your pelvic floor lives. And the TA connects to both the rib cage and the pelvis and helps to maintain the relative relationship between those two structures. So we really need to know where your rib cage is and your pelvis. So if we live here with the ribs on top of the pelvis, we can see that the diaphragm and the pelvic floor will communicate really well with one another, up and down. But if we live here, the diaphragm can't come down as well to initiate that stabilizing pressure that sets up the recoil from our pelvic floor and TA. This leaves them in a less ready state when a cough or sneeze or laugh comes, and that reduced sturdiness at our center leaves us vulnerable to an injury. Our first step is to look at what position your rib cage lives in, so we can know which tips and tricks you need to help you get it back on top of your pelvis again. I think of the rib cage as a bell ringing off of your shoulders. And for some of us, our bell is rung up, sort of like military posture. And for some of us, our bell is rung down, and we're more slouched. So let's ring our bells together. First, let's ring our bells up. Good. Now, let's ring our bells back down. Good. Okay, let's ring them up. And good. This time, now take a big breath. Good. And now we're going to ring back down. Good. And we're going to take a big breath. Good. What did you notice? Did your breath change as we changed positions?
Mm-hmm. When I was ringing up, my chest was rising up, and when I was ringing down, my gut was expanding.
Okay, good. Exactly. When our bells are rung up, we tend toward breathing up into our chest. And when we're rung down, we tend to breathe into our bellies. So the big takeaway here is that by simply changing our alignment, we change the way we breathed. We changed the way we used our diaphragms. So we can use an alignment change to optimize the action of our diaphragm. And we do that by making our bell quiet. So instead of here, rung up, or here, rung down, we're going to use it here, quiet, over top of our pelvis. So now what we need to do is find out if your bell rung up or bell rung down. And I'm going to give you some clues to help you sort that out. So let's take a look at the position of Monica's ribcage to help us piece that together. We're going to be looking here, not getting distracted by her shoulders. So first up, some clues that you might be bell rung up. Here is Monica's ribcage, okay? Clue number one, if your bell is rung up, you'll see the top of your ribcage living behind your low back. It's giving you the appearance of a really sharp curve in your low back. But the rib cage position is contributing to that appearance. Clue number two, breast trajectory. The breasts follow the rib cage. If your bell is rung up, your girls will be headed north, assuming of course that you have a good bra. And we can see that here on Monica. Our final clue, folks who are bell rung up tend to be chest breathers. So you're going to take a big breath in the mirror and take note of where you see that breath movement happening. Let's see what happens when Monica takes a breath. Good, and we can see her chest rise. Okay, now some clues that you might be bell rung down. Monica, can you ring your bell rung down for us? Good, okay. Clue number one, when the bell is rung down, This time, it's the bottom of the rib cage that lives behind the low back. Clue number 2, we're taking a look at breast trajectory again. Remember, the breasts follow the rib cage, so your girls may be in a more southerly direction. And number 3, take a big breath again. Someone who's bell rung down will tend to have more of a belly breath. Can you show that for us? Nice, Monica, great. Okay, so those are your clues. Head to a mirror in your house where you can see as much of you as possible and look at the position of your rib cage. Again, please don't get distracted by your shoulders. Your shoulders, like your breasts, will follow your rib cage. So as we change your rib cage, the shoulders will adapt to a new position. Stay focused right here. While you are there, please take note of where you feel your weight going into the floor in your natural standing position. Is it through your heels, your midfoot, or your toes? Keep that information handy for later. Also, please have someone take a photo of you or take a selfie so you can have a picture to compare to as you start to make changes. Some of you may not have an extreme rib cage position. This may come alongside a very flat spine and rib cage. Take note of this too. For you folks, the position of your pelvis may be a more important variable to consider. Okay, off you go to sort it out. We'll wait here. Now it's time to talk about the position of your pelvis. What I see clinically is that most women tend to have their bums tucked under. There are 2 types of bum tuckers. Some are lifers. They have a very flat butt, they can't fill up their jeans, and they really never could. You know who you are. Or some are newbies. These are women who unknowingly are becoming bum tuckers. You can see this is starting to happen because the top of their glutes are becoming very flat, but they still have some junk in their trunk down below. So this is a big clue that they have started using their pelvis in a somewhat tucked under position in their posture, day-to-day movements, and in exercise, which remember puts the pelvic floor in a less ready state. We can see that here on Monica. Okay, so you can see here her bum is becoming flat, but below she's still got some action going on. Next, I want you to try pulling on a pretend string at the top of your pelvis in order to untuck your bum. Then let go of your bum string and see what position your bum likes to fall back into. That is where your bum likes to live, the position it likes to be in throughout your day. That's your clue that it may live in a more tucked position than you expected. So go check it out. Check out the flatnosity of your bum and pull on your bum strings and then let go and see what happens and where your bum likes to live. Okay, so how did it go? Lifers, when you pulled on your string, did you see that you could untuck your bum more than you expected? That's good. That means we can move you more toward that relative neutral. You guys may have been the same group that found that you weren't at a major ribcage extreme. Bum strings will come in more handy for you. Newbies, were you more tucked than you thought? It can be a shock. Okay, now that we've sorted out where our ribcage is and where our pelvis tends to live, I'm going to teach you a couple of tricks and tips to help you find a more optimized position without a ton of effort. This shouldn't feel like you have to work really hard to hold it. We have to find our postural sweet spot. So what we're going to do is a ski jump. We're going to lean forward at the ankles, and if you have to, hold on something in front of you just in case you need to for balance. What I want you to watch is that as we lean forward, our rib cage shifts naturally over top of our pelvis, which is where we want it to live. Now, let's do it again. This time, I want you to watch my bum, okay? Watch as I shift into that ski jump, it gently untucks. The ski jump gently puts the rib cage and pelvis in a more optimal position relative to one another without a ton of effort. Once you have that better position of the rib cage relative to the pelvis, bum gently untucked. Then maintain that position and shift back to the middle with your weight evenly distributed over your feet. Breasts should now be parallel to the floor. Relax, and you're there. This is your neutral. So let's watch Monica do that. Okay, and shift your rib cage a little bit. That's it. Good. And then come on back, maintaining that position. Perfect. And now she's in her more relative neutral. So let's go practice that in the mirror, and then we'll meet you back here. Let me troubleshoot the ski jump for some of you. Some ladies, when I ask them to lean into the ski jump, will do this, and they'll leave their rib cage behind them. So be sure to use the mirror to keep an eye on that rib cage and make sure it actually shifts forward as you lean. Holding on to something in front of you may help too. Your new position, your neutral, will likely feel like you are diving off a diving board, but the mirror doesn't lie. You're straight. Your inner ear is really sensitive to change, and if it used to live here and you've moved it here, it will really feel like you're leaning way forward. This will ease as you spend more time in the position. The other trick you can try is to simply pull on your bum string to gently untuck your bum. Let's have Monica try this. Good. Did you see that her rib cage gently shifted forward as she pulled on her bum string, and her breasts are more parallel to the floor? Perfect. So she doesn't have to work hard to change that rib cage position. She just needs to pull a little on her bum string. Again, this change in alignment will help her shift her weight to be more evenly distributed over her feet. A quick troubleshoot here. For some of you, pulling too much on the bum string will irritate your low back, so please listen to your body. Only pull on your bum string and untuck your bum enough to make a change but not create any pain. Untucking the bum is the primary variable we can play with for those of you with very straight spines and ribs and flat bums. So for you guys, try both the ski jump and pulling on the bum string and see which one works best for you. It can untuck more than you think. Okay, let's go back to our mirrors and try some ski jumps and pull on your bum strings and see which one optimizes that relative position of the rib cage over the pelvis with the least amount of effort. Look for your breasts to be parallel to the floor. Feel your weight evenly distributed over your feet. Off you go and give it a try. So onto your homework. Find your new position, either with the ski jump and moving back to the middle or pull on your bum string. And then once you're there, practice taking some breaths. You'll know you're in the right spot because your bell will be quiet, your bum will be gently untucked, your breasts will be parallel to the floor, and your weight will be evenly distributed over your feet. You need to spend a few minutes each morning and evening finding your sweet spot and taking some breaths. Check in and adjust your alignment 10% of your day when you're in a line, brushing your teeth, cooking, and then we're going to gradually increase that amount. If you're struggling and having trouble putting this idea together in your body, understand that it takes practice. And our new information informs us that the closer you get to neutral, the better the system works. So even if you can't get there perfectly, you can benefit from a shift in your alignment from this to this. Neutral is a range, a middle ground, and everyone has that sweet spot within that range that optimizes their system. So keep at it and know that the next steps will help pull the alignment together.